Welcome back to Tanner Style. Welcome back to my kitchen. We just finished with putting our Irish soda bread together. Right now it's off baking, and so we're gonna get busy putting our stew together. So today we're gonna make a lamb-based stew. It has Guinness in it, and really this is, you know, an Irish stew is kind of just a basic stew. There's not really anything way too fancy about it. Let's have a look at what we're going to be cooking with today. We have a boneless leg of lamb. We have, of course, got some Guinness. We've got potatoes. Just russet potatoes are going to be fine. We've got some tomato paste that we're going to be using to thicken this all up with. Of course, seasoning with salt and pepper. And for our herbs, we're going to use a little parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. I don't know, I almost feel like we should be going to a fair of some sort. I don't know. We're gonna have some cabbage in there. This isn't really normally a part of most stew recipes that I've seen, but cabbage kind of has a strong history in Ireland, and I think some cabbage is gonna be nice. We've got some onions, a head of garlic, and some carrots. Okay, so let's start off with our carrots, and we're gonna peel these up. But just so you know what we're doing here, we're actually going to do an oblique cut on all of the carrots because it's actually one of my favorite cuts. We will go into more of how to do an oblique cut, what it takes when we do our knife skills videos. Feel free to watch along, and if you can figure it out on your own, then more power to you. Okay, I'm pausing my prep for just a moment. I just thought, you know, maybe I should comment. Now, maybe you saw when I was just barely picking apart all my parsley. This is probably not the parsley that you're used to seeing people cook with. I'm using curly parsley here rather than the Italian flat leaf parsley. Really, I asked Char to go and shop for me. I gave her my list. Usually I buy curly parsley for my Basque cooking. I just didn't specify what type of parsley. And really, to be honest, it doesn't really make a whole heck of a lot of difference. They're both parsley. They do act a little bit differently. They look different, but the flavor, really not all that different. I'm sure that there will be some people who disagree with me. Use whatever parsley you want to use. All right, let's get back to prepping. Okay? No. Okay, I paused our prep for just a moment. So I'm gonna do a different kind of oblique cut with the potatoes. You're gonna see it might look a little disorganized. It might look a little different than what you've seen other people doing. I'm not just gonna cube these, which is, you know, normally I'd probably do a large dice. But I'm gonna do something a little different. I think it looks a little bit more rustic. The key thing, anytime you're cutting your carrots, the potatoes, any of it, always remember, keep everything about the same size so it cooks evenly. Cut all your carrots the same size so they all cook evenly. If it's potatoes, cut all your potatoes the same size so they cook evenly. Carrots don't have to be cut the same size as the potatoes because they can be added at different times. There's no rules about which cut you have to use or which is more proper or less proper. Okay, you'll also notice that I wash off my potatoes. I just barely changed out my water. You didn't see that, but you will see that I have clean water. Also, the other thing I want you to make note of, you may have seen it up until now, and I want you to make note of it as I go through, and I'm probably going to point this out in lots and lots and lots of other videos. There is no excuse to not work clean. Clean as you go. I have a bowl to the side here just for garbage. I take all my food waste and I stick it in there. Now, if you're at home, you can mulch this if you want. We're probably just going to throw it in the fire, and it's going to make everything smell really good around here. Some of the things like the parsley stalks, you can definitely save those and use them for a stock later on, or even the carrot ends, same thing. Save it for stock that you're going to make. We're not making a stock anytime soon, so I'm not going to keep it. I'm just going to throw it away. You do whatever works for you. I just want to point out the next thing that we're going to prep. We're going to do our onions, and then we're going to do our garlic. So anytime you're prepping anything with a really strong flavor like onions, garlic, chili peppers, anything like that, you're going to want to leave till the end of your prep, because it's going to taint the flavor of everything else on it. Okay, of course, if you're gonna use meat on the same cutting board as everything else, then you're gonna want to save your meat for absolutely last, because you don't want to contaminate anything else. These are some of the things you need to think about as you go about doing all of this work in your own kitchen. And the other thing that I want to point out that I was thinking about while I was doing all of this, none of this, especially like the oblique cuts, you know, you see I'm doing one carrot at a time, one potato at a time. None of this is really how would be ideal in most restaurants, okay? Because restaurants are concerned with processing a lot of food as fast as they can so they can get out a product that tastes good, that looks consistent, that cooks consistently, and getting it out to customers, because that's how they make money. This is how I choose to do it. This is how I want to do it. And this is how maybe you might want to do it at home. You can choose to do it however you want to do it. But I am not trying to train you to be a chef. I want that to be very clear from the very beginning to the very end of this channel's lifetime. I am not trying to train anybody to be a chef. I'm trying to train you to be better in your own home kitchen. Let's get back to our onions. We're going to prep those. We're going to dice them up. We're just going to do a 1/4 inch dice on those, and we're going to mince our garlic. Let's get back to work. Okay, so our battery died as we were finishing up the meat, but we got all of our meat cut. We finished all of our mise en place. Again, for any newcomers, mise en place is a French term, means everything in its place. It's the whole concept of prepping everything, having everything ready before you start cooking. So we've got it all ready. We're by the fire. We're ready to start cooking. Our pan is getting hot here. First thing that we're gonna cook here, and we're gonna scrape all this out when it's done, but we've got some tomato paste. Now the tomato paste we're just gonna use to thicken our stew and give it a little bit more flavor. But we're gonna actually cook this first, and there's a reason for this. Okay, so anytime that you're gonna use tomato paste just as a thickener, I would recommend cooking it. And so what we're looking for, we're looking to achieve an effect, right? We're looking to scorch that tomato paste, get it like kind of a rust brown, and what we're doing is we're caramelizing the sugars in there, kind of roasting it in a way. We're developing a lot more flavor in there. And so when we add this to our stew, it's really just going to make the whole thing a lot richer. So just hang with me for a minute while I cook up all of the tomato paste. You know, it's a little bit more difficult cooking it over a direct flame. You can see I'm getting some scorching. There's some black bits in there. That's not really what we're aiming for. We just want it to become kind of a browner color, and we want a caramelization, not a burn. But we are getting somewhat of that. I think we've cooked our tomato paste about enough. Let's go ahead and pull that out. So let's add in a little bit more oil in there. And at this point, we are going to go ahead and put a sear all over our lamb. Normally at home, I would toss my lamb in some flour. It'll kind of get it a little bit crispier, right? We thought we had extra flour here today, and it turned out that we didn't have as much flour that we brought with us as we had planned. So, you know, just like this is also fine. The goal here, what we're doing right now, the goal here is not to cook the lamb all the way through. We want to get it browned, and we want to get a sear on it, so that sear will seal up the meat. And so we have, you know, you can have dry meat even in a stew. And we don't want dry meat. We want nice chunks of juicy lamb meat in our stew that fall apart. And that sear is going to add some flavor to it and help that out. And while it's in here, we're just going to throw in some salt and some pepper. And if you want, you can also use beef. Both beef and lamb are appropriate for Irish stews. And as far as the oil that we're using with this, I used vegetable oil. You can use olive oil if you really want to. I feel like vegetable oil is a little bit more appropriate, seeing as how Ireland is not known traditionally for its centuries-old olive crops. We are just going to use that vegetable oil. We're going to sear this up. We'll come back when this is about done in just a minute here. So our meat has browned. I think we're about ready to add in our onions and garlic. Get our onions in there. And oh man, we're already getting the smell from the onions in there. It smells, all of this smells so amazing right now. I wish there was such a thing as smell-o-vision. Getting it cooked up a little bit. We can go ahead and add in, oh, did we lose? Oh man, we lost some lamb. That hurt. So there we go. We got our garlic mixed in. And when those onions have gotten to be about translucent, they're just about there right now, then we're gonna move on to the next part of this. Again, you know, this is all about results cooking. The first result we were looking for with the meat was a sear, a browning. The next result we're looking for is translucence in our onions. These are things you're gonna see in multiple recipes all over the place. Browning the meat, translucent onions. You're looking for an aroma from the garlic and the onion as it's in there cooking. So we're actually about ready. We are gonna go ahead and we are gonna add all of our Guinness. So we are gonna just kind of cook this for all of the non-drinkers out there. I don't drink either, so I'm gonna cook all of the alcohol out of this. And alcohol wants to evaporate anyway. And cooking it this early in the process, all of that alcohol is gonna cook out easily. We still need to let this stew because it's stew. You know, this is still going to cook for quite a while. We're going to cook out all of the alcohol that we can before we add any other liquid. We'll be back in just a second. You can see that I've got all that Guinness cooking in here. All the alcohol is cooking off. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put all of that tomato paste back in. We're going to let that kind of spread around, thicken up all of this. We're going to go ahead and we're going to add in our carrots, potatoes as well. We've got our meat cooked somewhat. It's been stewing in here. Our onions are definitely cooked. Our garlic is definitely cooked. So the rest of the cooking, the main thing that we're looking for to achieve here is the meat is going to be cooked all the way through when this is done regardless. The thing that's going to kind of tell us when our stew is done is when those potatoes and those carrots are done. So the way that you check potatoes, so the carrots, they will be done. They'll be tender enough. The potatoes are what's going to take the longest. The way that you can tell when a potato is done, either take a knife and insert it. If it's stiff, if it's hard, then it's not done yet. If the knife inserts easily, slides out easily, it should be done cooking. So let's add in just a little bit of the beef stock. I'm not sure how much we're actually going to need here. Normally, if I were sauteing this or something else, you know, some other kind of a preparation, I'd probably go to the trouble of picking off my thyme leaves. But stewing like this, a lot of times I just throw it in, right? And so I'm going to throw in some thyme. I'm going to throw in some rosemary, throw in some sage as well, and all of the flavors are going to come off of all of this, of our herbs as it stews. And like with the thyme especially, let's put in a little bit more thyme. Thyme is good stuff. So with the thyme especially, all of those little leaves are going to come right off, and they're just going to mix in with everything else. The sage, the leaves are probably not going to come off. So when it's done, we're going to pull the sage out. We're going to pull all the thyme stems out. We're going to pull the rosemary. If the leaves are still on, then we'll pull those out. If they're not, then we'll just pull the stems out. We're going to cover it up. We're going to let it stew, and we're going to come back in 45 minutes or so. If you're doing this at home, I would probably bring it up to just under a boil on maybe a medium high or something, and then I'd set it on medium low to simmer. And you're just going to let it simmer until basically your potatoes are cooked, everything is cooked through, all of your flavors have developed, and the starch from those potatoes is going to help to thicken this, and it's going to thicken up quite a lot just by a reduction of the water from here. We're going to leave it right now. We'll check back when it's done a little bit more. And we're back. Let's have a look at how our stew is looking. That smells really good. What we want to do, let's find a good piece of potato. All right, there we go. Good sized piece of potato. So we've got our little paring knife, and we're gonna just do our test. So yeah, that pretty much slides in. That's what we want. We just want to make sure that our potato is good and cooked all the way through. Let's give it a little taste. Oh, all the flavors are coming through. That's good. When I can taste everything just in a piece of potato, all the flavors from the herbs, the lamb, everything all together, and we're heading in a good direction. We are at one of the most important parts of the whole process. We correct for seasoning, okay? So almost anything you make, you're not gonna add in a lot of salt and a lot of pepper when you first start. Most of your salt and pepper is gonna be added at the end. As water evaporates, the amount of salt does not go away. And so, you know, we want the seasoning to be right at the end, not at the beginning. You gain no benefit really by adding the salt earlier rather than later in most cases, unless there is some kind of an effect that you want from salt, you know, helping to tenderize meat or something of that nature, then there's no benefit usually to the dish to adding salt earlier rather than later. So we've got all of our herbs right up here at the top, and so we're just going to kind of pull those out. So we didn't bring bay leaves with us today. Normally we would also bring some bay leaves and put bay leaves in here. Bay leaves are good in any kind of a stew. We would also pull out bay leaves at this time. If you look at one of these thyme stems, so let me pull it out here for you, right? There's like a couple leaves on there, but for the most part the leaves have all come off. They're part of those more tender parts, and those just cook right off. They get so soft that they just come right off. You can also use dried thyme if you would like. That would also work just as well. There's nothing wrong with using dried herbs. Fresh is great. Dried is also good. So let's try our broth now. Still need some more salt and pepper in there. Experience is going to tell you how much salt to add. And I was thinking, you know, you're never really gonna know how to season things properly until you have made something that is way too bland and something that is way too salty. At a minimum, you're never gonna be really reliable with your seasoning until you have made both of those mistakes. And so go ahead, make those mistakes. I wouldn't intentionally oversalt something so that it's disgusting, but don't be afraid to add salt. If you do that, then you're going to make that way too bland error, and you're probably going to make that much sooner than the way too salty one. The point is that I want you to feel free to experiment and try something out, and feel free to make something that maybe isn't the best. You are never going to get to the point where your cooking is stellar and on point every time until you allow yourself to make those mistakes and learn from experience. I think we've got our salt just about right. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull this off the heat. I think it's about time to eat. Okay, we're not back at the table. I had forgotten about the cabbage. I can't believe we did that. We already took away the griddle. We just put the Dutch oven right on the coals here. So let's come in. We're going to add the cabbage. Now we saved the cabbage till the end because cabbage actually cooks pretty darn quickly. Saving it until the end, giving it a quick cook. We're just using the cabbage basically to fill out the meal, just to add a little bit more of that classic Irish touch. As soon as the cabbage is cooked, we're going to top it with the parsley, just as a bit of a garnish, and add just a little bit more flavor on top. And then we will meet you back at the table. So we've got our finished stew, we've got our soda bread, and let's see how it all comes together. So let's get a little bit of everything. So hot still. Woo. But man, it's good. That is really good. So let's try it with some of our soda bread. Yeah, that came out really well. One of the main features of Irish soda bread is the baking soda, hence soda bread, right? But we really can't taste the baking soda in there because of that whisk that we did. You'll see that in the last video. It came out, the flavor is nice and even. It's really great. Thank you for joining us. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Please give us a like, subscribe if you haven't. If you're new to the channel, welcome. You know what? For all of you who have subscribed, I want to tell you sincerely, genuinely, thank you. I really do, truly appreciate you guys watching these videos. I truly appreciate you subscribing and following along with us. It really does mean a lot to all of us. It means a lot to me personally. This is my journey. I hope that I can help you with your journey in your kitchen. We'll see you in the next one.